Let's have a look at another one now. So this time, they are talking about what is their perfect first date. So bearing in mind, this is a bunch of quite traddy, sort of Christian ladies talking about what they want on a first date. So let's find out. Here we go.
What's each of yours ideal first date?
Ooh, I didn't see that one. I'm such a foodie. If you take me to a really nice, good restaurant with some good food, you have my heart.
You want to go to a nice dinner. And I totally get that with good food, but you're the same as me that I'm not trying to sit across from you at our first date.
I don't sit across. You have to sit right here to my left.
I mean, look, they're so sort of well put together, aren't they? I mean, they're obviously very attractive women. They're sort of, they've got this TikTok account of, you know, the Bible lady. I mean, they're religious women, but it's so sort of manicured, isn't it? They're so sort of like perfectly put together and everything. There seems to be, I mean, I guess it's not out of step with one's religious beliefs, but there seems to be a lot of emphasis here on appearance, you know, and I guess they're modestly dressed, so you can't really complain about that. But they seem a little bit overly glamorized in a sense, given the subject matter, given what they're talking about. Maybe that's just me. But anyway, obviously, she says, well, I want to get taken out for a nice dinner. So all the guys watching, the simps watching, like, oh, right, okay, so I have to take every girl out for an expensive dinner. Well, she might want that, but we always advise clients not to go for dinner on the first date because, you know, it's a bigger investment of time. For a start, you guys have got to sit there for like maybe 90 minutes. What if you don't get on? You know, it's far better just to go for a couple of drinks at the beginning, keep it very simple, or even a coffee, and just find out, okay, is there a vibe here at all? You know, I personally tend not to go for dinners with women, generally speaking, until after we've become intimate, and then if we're dating, that's something that we can do together because it's an enjoyable thing to do. But I don't really do it in the build-up process because, you know, it seems like you don't want to be the chump who's like spending a load of money going to a fancy place to try and impress her, and then you don't impress her and she doesn't sleep with you, because this is a rabbit hole that so many guys fall down, okay? And videos like this are really just sort of like pushing that agenda. And as well, I mean, this is a couple of Christian ladies here. Shouldn't they be saying, well, I'd be happy just to go for a walk on a Sunday morning, or, well, not Sunday morning, they'll be in church, Sunday afternoon. You know what I'm saying? Like, why does it now have to be a nice dinner and stuff like that? I do agree with her, however, about sitting next to each other. I think that is important on the date. The annoying thing about restaurants is the fact that they put the chairs opposite. On many of the tables, you know, you got the chairs opposite each other. You can make it work on a first date. I've made it work, but it's not ideal. Ideally, you want to be sitting next to her, which is why sometimes bars are better, or at least if you go to a place where there's booths and you guys can kind of sit together, or at least beyond that, if you can sit, you know, around the corner with each other on the table, that's another thing that you can do, which is better.
You know, I probably would have no shame and be like, hey, can I sit next to you?
I always do that, you know that?
I always do that as well.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's good.
Do you really?
To treat someone like a lady and take them to a nice dinner.
Right, it's good to treat someone like a lady and take them to a nice dinner. Okay, fine. So she wants the resources up front, okay? which is fine, whatever. But, you know, I get a lot of guys, you know, in my WhatsApp group and stuff like that who will say, like, oh, you know, these women nowadays, they just want to get taken out for dinners and blah, blah, blah. And, well, these women aren't disabusing us of that notion, are they, by any means?
On your first date.
I think it's a sign of respect to be intentional about where you're taking.
So you have to take them for a dinner. I'm guessing they don't want to go to McDonald's, these women, right? I'm guessing it's got to be quite a nice dinner, and that is a sign of respect. So presumably, if you don't take her for dinner, that's not a sign of respect. So if you say to her, "Hey, let's go for a coffee," you're showing her disrespect. Why is it so materialistic? Why does it have to be about spending a bunch of money in a fancy restaurant? Why can't it just be about, you know, as I say, like literally going for a walk, having a cup of tea? Why does it have to be, you know, the guy spending a load of money in order to be respectful?
Somebody, and wherever you take them is kind of a reflection of how much you value them.
Okay, fine, but you don't know how much you value them until you get to know them. And this is another reason why I, generally speaking, don't go to, you know, fancy restaurants or anything on early dates, because I can't, like, if I ask her for a date, okay, whether I've met her in person or it's been on an app or something like that, it would be absurd for me to say, well, I value her so much that I'm going to take her to the Ivy, or I value her so much that I'm going to take her to Hakkasan in London, you know, expensive restaurant. Because that's how much I value her. Because I don't know how much I value her yet, because we don't know each other, because we're basically strangers, okay? So that's an absurd argument to make as well. And again, it's this kind of, you know, you could say a gynocentric kind of a view where she's like, well, I'm a woman, so therefore I just inherently deserve to be valued. He doesn't even know me. This guy doesn't even know me, but he needs to shell out $300 because he should just value me anyway because I'm a woman, and that's it, okay?
On a first date, I think I'd rather do something like
Comedy show? That'd be fun.
I want
Comedy show is a bad idea for a first date, and they do actually identify why.
something where we can talk, somewhat of an activity, but one that we can still talk in, maybe going on a drive, having a picnic on the beach. It's the whole sitting across from each other, having to stare down thing that I don't love.
Okay, so that's fair enough. So she kind of now sort of changes her view a little bit, or maybe it was the other woman who was more sort of adamant about the dinners. So what she's saying is better, because yeah, the comedy show idea is crap. You don't want to do that on a first date, and you certainly don't want to sit in the front row and have the comedian pick on you and kind of like, you know, just ruin your chances by making stupid jokes about you. Okay, so don't do that, because what she says is correct. You've got to be able to talk, right? The whole point of a date really is you're sitting down there and you're getting to know one another. Okay, you get to know one another over the course of that date. Don't complicate it, right? You don't have to go rock climbing. You don't have to go fucking throwing axes or whatever. You know, there are so many different things that you could potentially do for a date, but actually all you really need to do is just grab coffee and sit down for half an hour, or grab a couple of drinks and see if you guys get on. That's all it's about, right? Because this is about the vibe between the two of you. It's not about doing extraneous stuff to that in order to try and make it more exciting or whatever. The thing between you should be the cool thing. The thing between you, the vibe between you should be the exciting thing.
You know what it is? I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone.
Say it.
But I can...
Oh, no! It finished. That was really badly edited, wasn't it? What was she going to say? What was going to offend us? And then they cut it. I was so gutted about that. So gutted about that. Anyway, what do you guys think? What did you think about that? Fuck first, feed second. I feel half naked. I've been ghosted countless times spending money on a random woman. I just think it's not really... I mean, look, there have been occasions more recently over the last couple of years where I have... in certain occasions, I have sort of softened my stance on this, and we have gone for a meal, and that's okay. It's been okay. One of the problems with dates where you're going for a meal, if you're not particularly adept at Riz, is that just the whole setup of it is not ideal for seduction. I mean, yes, you might have a nice candle on the table or whatever. It might be nice low lighting in some places, but you know, just the fact of sitting opposite her and you're eating, you've got a table in between you, you can't really get close. You know, you've got the waiters, and that's the other bloody thing as well. You're sitting in these restaurants, the waiters come over every 2 seconds. They're like, oh, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Can I get you anything else, sir? Can I get you anything else? Like, you can't even get into a flow of a conversation because these idiots keep coming over and interrupting. So there's also that. Whereas if you just have a couple of drinks, you're just sitting there, you're sitting quite close to one another, you can start to get really, you know, you can start to sort of like the eye contact, you can start to do little bits of touch, you can really get sort of quite intimate with the conversation. That generally works better. Now, what you can, of course, do is a bit of both. You could grab something to eat and then you could go for a drink afterwards, or the other way around. I mean, what's happened with me sometimes is you go out, you're talking, you're getting on well, and then you're both just naturally quite hungry anyway, so you can go and grab something to eat. But in those instances, I tend to go to relatively low-key places. I mean, I'm not talking about Nando's necessarily, but I would go to somewhere that would not a super, super fancy place. You know, like if we're talking a super fancy restaurant, like where you're going to be spending like upward $200 or upwards of that, I would save that for somebody that I'm actually dating. Okay, you know, I wouldn't be doing that for somebody that I've only just met and I haven't slept with, because it's just sort of, you know, it's just a bad frame. I don't want to be buying somebody's affection in that way. It's just not the right thing to do. And it often, as has been said in the chat, it often doesn't work anyway, because, you know, often she may just ghost you anyway afterwards. So you're down that money. Unless, and the only caveat to this is if you actually want to do it, right? If there's a super cool new restaurant in town and you'd really like to go there, and you know, you're like, oh, okay, well, I've met this girl, or I met this girl on a dating app or something. Why don't I bring her? It'll be cool, and I want to go there anyway, so it's fine. That's okay. If you want to do that, you do you, okay? But don't just do it to try and impress her, okay? That's a very bad way to operate. It's bad frame. And if you're not experienced with game, you'll probably fuck it up anyway, and you won't see her again. And then you'll just be sitting there going, "Oh, I can't believe I spent like $300 on this meal," and and the girl ghosted me. I mean, it's terrible, right? You want to find out first if there's chemistry there, if there's a vibe there, if you guys get on well, and then you can take it from there. JBB says she could also just be saying yes because she gets a nice meal out of it. It happens all the time. Well, I hear about this. So there's a dude in my chat. I've got a private WhatsApp group, by the way. And if you want to join it, well, drop me an email, troy@realtryfrancis.com, and I can get you in. But I've got this private WhatsApp group, and people are chatting on there. A lot of my former clients and stuff like that. And there's a guy on there who's absolutely convinced that there are all these women in London who basically just want to get taken out for dinners, and then they ghost, and they're only there for the dinners and whatnot. I personally have not experienced that. That may be because, you know, I'm a world-class dating coach, and so I'm operating on a higher plane. But also, it just seems odd to me that, like, even as a woman, okay, I get it, right? If you know, maybe you're not earning that much money, it's nice to get taken out for food. But I just can't really... Like, why would you want to go out with somebody that you probably don't even like, you're not even attracted to, and you've got to sit there for 2 hours with this chump just because you can get fed? I mean, it seems like a silly thing to do, and kind of a not enjoyable thing to do. I mean, the caveat to that, of course, is that a lot of girls want to get pictures for Instagram and stuff like that, so she might tolerate it for those reasons. But I don't know, man. I think it would seem odd to me, as a woman, and maybe Raging Tomato can weigh in on this as well, to actually suffer to sit through a date with somebody where there's no attraction at all just to get a free meal. I mean, you might as well just go to the corner shop and buy, you know, some cheap food, you know, some rice and something. I mean, like rather than do that. I wouldn't want to go on a date with a woman that I had no attraction to and sit there for 2 hours and have to talk to her and blah, 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 even if she was paying for the meal. It just doesn't seem like a very good use of my time. Although... Another caveat, I suppose, is that women can often be quite sort of status conscious. If it's a hot new restaurant and there's somebody to take her, maybe that's incentive enough. I don't know. But as I say, it seems odd, and it's not something I've really experienced. I mean, I have actually had. Sometimes I will obviously deal with women, and they do sort of say, "Oh, are we going to go for a meal?" and stuff like that. Actually, less in London though. I have to say, it's tended to be more. It's the Eastern European women, really. You know, like there was a Russian girl I had some dealings with a while back, and she was like that, and you know, so a random this Ukrainian girl that I've been seeing and stuff. I mean, it does happen, but it doesn't seem to happen very much to me in London. Anyway,